What if you could incentivize your labor force in a positive way to hold one another accountable for the production, the quality, and the safety of the jobs that they're building? My guest today is Michael Fortinberry. He is the co-founder and COO of Protiv, a trailblazing productivity program that's transforming project-based incentives. He has a background in construction, and as a result of that, he understands the problems that construction companies face when they look to maximize the productivity of their labor force. And he has produced and developed a software program to help with incentive-based performance, tracking the performance of folks in the field, and as a result of that, enabling them to see how they're doing in terms of their labor productivity and how that relates to the incentives that they have committed to and agreed to. Our conversation is very interesting because we dive into what actually incentivizes people, and we always think about carrots and sticks when it comes to incentives. Michael's very much on the carrot side of that discussion. So enjoy my discussion here with Mike today. Feel free to check out his website, protiv.com. The great thing about Mike, again, is he has experience in construction, so we're not just going to be talking about generalities or imaginations when it comes to construction. We're going to talk about specifics and practicalities, and you're going to enjoy this conversation. Thanks for listening today. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Michael, welcome to Construction Genius.
Well, Eric, I got to tell you, that's a bold title for a podcast. Construction Genius. I don't know that I qualify for that. My dad would have been great at that. He was a construction genius.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because people, they're always asking me, Eric, where'd you get the name of your company? I guess you're the genius. And I tell them, now, hold on a second. It comes from the Edison quote that genius is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. So I view myself and everything that I do for my clients and my audience as the 1% inspiration to go with the 99% of your perspiration.
In my case, my dad was the general contractor. He was pretty much an electrician. And so mine was the perspiration because he didn't want to climb up in the attic in Florida to pull the Romex. And so that was my job. And that's kind of how we get, I got my first step into this crazy industry was working with Dad. And I think that's probably true of a lot of folks listening. We start in our family's business and we learn those trades. We started a construction company here in New York City. 7, 8, 9 years ago, been that long, and grew it quite a bit. And the company we have today, I mean, kind of wild to see, 100 plus people running around in the summer, building things, in our case, renovating things, and seeing where that came from. Very humble beginnings of, some guys with paintbrushes, but came a long way.
That's cool. It's interesting as a company grows, the needs of the business grow from an equipment point of view, from a structure point of view, and often from a software point of view. And as a result of that, we are all aware of the software salespeople that come in the door looking to sell us the latest and greatest easy button that's going to revolutionize our lives. We maybe buy the spiel, implement the software. It's a total nightmare. What kind of experiences have you had with that in your lifetime?
All of those. I've thrown away enough software to get I should have like key to Silicon Valley or something. It's interesting. I find that if you don't speak both languages, it's really hard to craft a solution, a technical solution to a problem. You don't truly understand it. And there are a lot of people that have, a cousin who told them about a procurement problem in their construction company and said, well, I can write code and I'm going to do that. But they don't really truly understand procurement or in construction or plan reading or hiring or whatever that thing is. And I felt like when we started up Protiv and we spun it out of our construction company, we understood the problem. that our peers were facing, and we spoke their language. We still speak their language. And I think that that helped us to avoid some of the pitfalls of some construction technology companies, because this is something we built for ourselves to solve a problem we had in our own company. We just found out everybody else had the same basic problem.
So let's explore that a little bit, because I think that's a key insight and really a wonderful thing that you built it to solve your own pain, and then you saw that it was a benefit for other people. What is that core problem that you were looking to solve when you began to build this software for your own construction company?
Yeah, it actually started in a kitchen renovation. So we do large scale multifamily renovation work, and so that's our company focus. We had a project where the schedule kind of needed us to do the cabinets in one day. It was taking us about 10 hours to get it done. And I really, from a scheduling standpoint, needed them to not bleed over to that second day. And we went to the carpenter. There was probably one primary carpenter, in each location. And look, we've got $40 an hour in you, got 10 hours. I'll give you the whole $400, but I really need you to be done in that 8-hour block. You can have the 10 hours worth of pay. You have to do it right, because rework in our world was terrible, because once you renovate an apartment, if I have to rework something or fix something, now I'm back into an occupied space, which is a train wreck to work in. So it was a combination of do it right the first time and finish ahead of schedule. And I can pay you more because I've already budgeted for that other number. I just had a schedule problem. Well, it turns out it could actually be done in about 6.5 hours, and they're really motivated to do it. And they make sure their tools are there. They keep their job site organized. They're productive. They communicate well. What we learned was that there is a connection between their motivation and their brain to what we get from them. And when that connection occurs the right way, their behavior changes, their output changes, the quality of what they do changes. We learned we needed them being our team in the field, our workers, to care the way we cared. What do we care? We care because I lose money if it doesn't go well. I don't make as much money if the job falls apart. I lose customers. I need them to feel that they have a financial interest in the outcome of this job beyond the hourly rate they're paid. We have to pay them by the hour. There's a legal requirement to pay by the hour, OT rules, et cetera. All of that is buttoned up, but I need them to feel that there's an opportunity to do more. And as we began to unlock that, there was real behavior change at the job site it was powerful.
You're talking about applying a software solution to a human behavior insight. And as you began to speak there, I thought about carrots and sticks. And it sounds like you're taking more of the carrot approach than the stick approach. Is that right?
The stick, there are a few reasons why the stick is a problem in this model. First is when you apply the stick. The carrot says if you overperform, you make more money. The stick says if you underperform, you make less. However, there's a theory out there, it's actually Nobel Prize-winning theory called behavioral economics, where the stick has an unintended consequence because people have a greater fear of loss than they do desire to win. And so in your hourly pay, if I think I might have to go home and tell my wife that I made less money this week because I was lazy or didn't do something right, I am really afraid of that. So if that becomes a possibility, I cut corners. And so in real life, what you experience, because we played around with all that, we found that the stick part had the unintended consequence of causing quality issues that we were easier for us to control if it was just the carrot.
Can you just go back and explain the why again? Just another pass on it, on why the stick didn't work, the unintended consequence of that.
When they rushed, because they're afraid they might make less, they have quality problems. And quality problems are more expensive to us than production problems. And so I need to get both production and quality to underpin an incentive system.
Okay, I get that. Because if the quality sucks, then the rework goes in. And if the rework's happening, then your production is totally shot.
Yeah, it's pointless. It's not solving the actual problem. The two things have to sit hand in hand to the point where the worker feels the requirement to do it right the first time and to be ahead of schedule. I actually have a carpenter on video. His name's Frank. And I have him on video saying the quiet part out loud, Eric. He actually said, this is the funny thing. He said, well, my approach to quality changed once I went on Propay. Propay is what we call a bonus project. Once I went on Propay because it cost me too much money to go back. And I was like, that's the way I think. Like that's usually where it comes from my chair, and the management teams think, wow, it's so expensive. Rework is killing us. What's the percentage of construction costs that are wrapped up in rework? Like 30% or something crazy. I always thought the minute I have to go back, I just broke even. If I have to go back twice, I lost money. So get it done right the first time. And if you'll do that, and if you can stay ahead of the schedule that we had, the number of hours that I forecast for it, I'm happy to pay you more. I planned on spending that money anyway. Do it right, beat my budget, everybody wins.
So there is a slight tension there because you are asking them to do it right the first time and do it within the schedule. And so there is a tension there.
There is. So, interesting that most of the production lift that we witnessed comes from communication and teamwork, not rushing. Rushing actually is almost counterproductive, right? If I don't want to rush through something, what we have found is that teams, which most of what everybody's doing out here is a team of people, when they communicate better and work better together, they get more done. If I will make sure that all the tools and parts and materials that I need are on the truck before I leave the shop, I make fewer trips to Home Depot. I don't need two people going to Home Depot if one can do it. I don't need to spend 45 minutes at 7-Eleven on the way in if we can just get some ice from the ice machine that's in the shop before we leave. Pick whatever scenario you've got in your head around what costs you time that could go away without impacting. We're not talking about them rushing. I'm talking about thinking. It's amazing what happens when you hire someone, right? So I'm going to go hire Bob and I'm going to pay Bob to dig a hole. And when I pay Bob $20 to an hour to dig this hole, I've paid for his back, right? I mean, that's the task that we're paying him to do. Run this conduit, put out this concrete, put on these shingles, whatever your task is. That hourly rate for your back, turns out you get a free gift with purchase called a brain.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes with every employee. It's like, we didn't even know that it was there, right? We get this free brain and all we have to do is incentivize them to use it.
Yeah.
Them to use it, help them to use it, encourage them to use it. And when you do that, they sometimes come up with ideas and they'll say, well, we could dig this hole faster if I used a shovel instead of my hand. I don't know, whatever. Pick whatever thing that you would do if you were there as the owner. And I want them to think. And sometimes the ideas they bring you are terrible. And sometimes the ideas they bring you are great. And something in the middle. But once they're thinking, you're already winning as a contractor. I've got a team now that at least cares, wants to do better. Doesn't mean they always will. Everybody out there listening to this has probably had good jobs go sideways because they just do. Sometimes it's out of our control. For whatever reason, jobs can get afoul of where we're hoping they would be. But if my team wants it to go well, it's going to be better than it would have been. More often it will achieve the goals that we set when we thought we were bidding this job, we estimated hours, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we're trying to do. Create a culture where the team on the ground cares and they want to overperform to the goals that we've set.
What kind of mindset shifts did you have to go through in order to move to this incentive-based perspective? Because, you spoke about culture, and a lot of companies don't necessarily have that incentive-based culture perspective. They basically have the stick. If you don't do it, then we'll find someone else who can, or at least we'll try, or we'll yell at you, or something like that.
Yeah, they all work for my dad, I think. So I tell customers probably every week, don't buy our system if you're not ready to deal with culture side of the performance-based compensation, pay for performance, whatever you want to call it, is while our software facilitates that process, the culture is the center. You have to, if you think that performance pay is going to fix your company outside of culture, you're mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
actually shine a light on whatever culture you have. So if you have a problem with communication and people don't know what they're supposed to do, or they're whatever your issues are, there, performance page to make everybody aware of that more
Right.
so. And so what we're coaching companies toward is create a foundation to good company culture and build from that. Performance pay can then help you create financial reasons why those culture steps are important to the workers. But you have to have, and I always talk about these 4 pillars. Authenticity is at the beginning. Whatever culture you want to come up with in your company need to be authentic to who you are. You cannot fake it long enough to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
So whatever your culture is going to be, make it real to yourself and who you really are. Make your culture center around your people, which is a simple thing to say. What we're really trying to do is make sure that we care about who they are as human beings, not just as the labor. How much does it matter to you that their kid has a baseball game tonight or not? Do you know your people? Do you know what their goals are? That's where I think a lot of companies need to drive safety into too. It's not about voting the increase to your workers' comp. It's about actually caring that your people don't get hurt.
Right.
Right. I think we nod to safety in our industry way too often in order to check boxes for insurance purposes or inspectors or whatever audits, not because we actually truly want to make sure that everybody's home safe. And so think about that and make that part of your culture. Third is communicate well. And that means communication has to be bidirectional. You got to be willing to have someone come in your office and say, hey, boss, you didn't get that paint delivered on time, and that just cost us money, right? That's a different kind of conversation than when you put performance-based pay and they begin to care about how the overall company operates. So communication needs to flow both directions. You can actually, as an owner, know what's really going on in the field. And then fourth, care about growth. And growth meaning how are my employees growing as people, as employees, as contractors and their skills, and how is my company growing, and what is the personality of your organization, culture of your organization around that. I think if you build that foundation that way, what performance pay does, it allows you to use an economic financial conversation and engine to facilitate all of those parts being central to how everybody sees their day when they work for you.
So if you've defined this culture, which is, a lot of work that people do, and especially as they mature as a business, perhaps when we first start, we're not thinking about culture, we're just thinking about building projects, winning work, and paying the bills. What are some of the most successful strategies that you've implemented to attract and retain skilled labor, particularly in a highly competitive market?
Yeah, it's tough right now. There's somewhere around 850,000 workers shortage by, I think, next year. It's 375, 400,000 job openings over the winter. That's just going to climb through the summer. We don't, in our own company, have as many people as we would like frequently. All construction companies have the wrong number of people at all times. That's
right.
Right. We always have too many or too few. Well, how do we attract the best people, and how do we keep the best people once we get them? When someone else gives them $2 an hour more, and they'll jump over and go to Bob's Plumbing instead of Jim's Plumbing. That's the worst of it. Spend 4 years cultivating someone up, getting ready to run their own crew, whatever your structure is, only to lose them for relatively small amount of money. But what's the challenge, right, Eric? Because Bob comes in your office and he says, hey, boss, I need a raise, right? Eric, can you give me a raise? A couple bucks an hour would really make a difference. The only thing that happens if you give Bob a raise is that your cost just went up. Bob doesn't think different the next day, but Bob really wants that raise because he's going to get it somewhere. So now I've got to recruit and I've got to retain great people, and I've got to do so in an environment that doesn't drive my costs up. So what we found is that workers like to work somewhere where they've got a chance to earn more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a great plumber. I'm worth $40 an hour, whatever, your market rates are. Okay. I can pay you that. Best part about working here is you can make an average of 44 because of our performance incentive. So, there's an opportunity for you to go further. All right. I would argue that the people you want to work for you are the ones who jump at that. The minute because in their head, they know they're good. Are they really good? If they're not really good, they're almost a little intimidated by the idea of performance pay because they're like, well, I'm not really that good. I'm just saying it. But if I'm really good, I know I'm going to overperform. So I want to work at this place. Once you have someone on performance pay, our workers across all trades are averaging about 18%, and 17.8 for higher wages than they do off of performance pay.
Let me just ask you to just simply define what you mean by performance pay.
So if you overperform on the project, the company splits some or all of whatever they save with both is a crew-based bonus that's then distributed to the workers individually based on the number of hours that they each put into the project.
But you bring it down to the crew level.
100%. They're the ones who do the work. Yeah.
Okay.
The ones you want to change behavior in your company. Yes, I would like my crew leaders to be motivated, my supers to be motivated. There's a lot of ways to bonus that team based on GP and other things. The hard team to motivate has always been the workers themselves.
Right.
And it's not just hard to motivate them, it's hard to really drive the right financial incentive to them in a way that you're not afraid you're just spending more money. At the most basic level, I create a budget. When I bid the job, I thought this was $10,000 in labor, $100, right, whatever it is. If I can beat that, if I get it done for $9,000 in labor, I've saved this $1,000 because my team worked well together. They didn't waste time. They did it right the first time. I overperformed to my target. I've got this leftover $1,000. I can do something with it. I plan to spend it anyway. I've already hit my target margin on the job right now because usually labor is my biggest variable cost. So now I've got an opportunity to do something with this leftover money. I can keep some of it. I can share it. I can share all of it. What do you want to do? But that pool of money that's left over, that's the key. Now, what we learned is that the workers need to be able to see this money very directly. It can't be just, trust me, I'm going to give it to you. And that's where that's where the software comes in, so that the workers see what their bonus opportunity is.
Okay, so when you say see what their bonus opportunity is, how is that visualized for them?
On their phone. We actually show workers the budget for the job for labor. We show them how much time they have for the budget. We show them how much time they've used, how many dollars it was, how many dollars they've used. We show them what's left over, and we show them based on the number of hours they're working, how much of it comes to their pocket. They can set their own goals. They can look at percent complete, and they can actually see on their phone what is going to be a bonus payment for them depending on how they're performing as a team.
What do you say to company owners who are like, I don't want to share that information with them? What if they think I'm making too much money and they're not making enough?
This is just the labor budget. We're not showing the budget, just the labor budget.
Okay. Hey, this is Eric. Just a quick break to remind you to go out to Amazon and purchase my book, Construction Genius. This is a great book. We've got, I think, 4.8 star reviews. I really want to encourage you to go out to the Amazon website and buy the book, because the book will help you to be a better leader. It's effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS, leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. One of my clients has this copy absolutely underlined and notes all over the place. It's something that is a go-to for him when he's looking to remind himself of what's key to being a successful leader, and then also working with his people to be successful as well. So go out to Amazon, buy the book, and now let's get back to my conversation with Michael. So what about so let's say you're working, there's an issue of production, and you've got, let's say, a guy or two on the crew that are, they're kick-ass all the time, but for whatever reason, the foreman is struggling, and as a result of that, the entire crew doesn't produce. How do you handle that?
Hey, you know what? I think I'll give you this. What if the owner is not doing something right? Maybe the owner's in charge of procurement or something, right? Yeah. And that was the kind of example I used earlier. The owner doesn't get on the phone with Sherwin-Williams and get that material delivered. They have, Granger hasn't dropped the stuff off because you called and ordered the wrong thing or gave the wrong address. It is fascinating what happens culturally in an organization when the crew in the field, which is generally a much bigger team than the crew in the office,
right,
starts to care enough that they bring those problems up. Yeah, I want that. As an owner, I really want Bob to come in my office and say, boss, you got to get your act together. You're costing us money. Think about what's happening right there. Now I have a team. Now if I've got 100 people, if I got 10 people, right now I have 3 of them that care. What if I had all 10 that cared?
Right.
And the information about what it is that we need to collectively do to be more successful matter to everybody. So that my crew on the ground care that the estimator can tell the difference between meters and feet when he's measuring out how many linear feet of base molding I got to put in. I need them to be aware and to care that all of this matters, from the way we bid the job, the permitting, the materials, the execution on the job site, our coordination with other trade, our production, our quality. All of those things have to come together, sometimes the weather, for us to make money. But if it all comes together, then we all do better. So let's get everybody to at least raise their hand and bring up the fact that, you know what, super, Bob's struggling. Our super is struggling with coordination on this job site. He can't keep the electricians out of the plumber's hair, whatever. Those kind of conversations are ones you want to be occurring if you're the owner, if you're in management, because then you can do something about it. Right now, you don't know. You have no idea, because it's not their money. Right here, this is a great thing, Eric. Right now, I hate to break it all dualistic, but your workers don't care about your money.
Right.
It's their money. They are somewhat accountable to their peers, which is interesting, because that's why the bonus being across the team works. Because if Bob is slow, his coworker's like, "Hey, Bob, you need to, get your act together here, because it's costing me money now." And so they're somewhat accountable to each other. And they will say things to each other that we can't say to them. That's a funny thing.
Yep.
But I want them to tell me that they're super struggling, so I can do something about it.
What is the relationship between implementing these incentive type approaches and the impact on the amount of overtime that you guys get or that your clients get?
So OT is interesting. I hear from a lot of different companies, different strategies around dealing with OT. I've talked to companies that just plan for it. They plan financially for it in the way they bid the job. They don't have enough people. They know they're going to need it. They're budgeting it in. I have others that just accept it. Yeah, we work 50 hours a week. My guys get 10 hours of overtime. It's what we do. Not going away. I have others that are just terrified of it. They know it's killing their margin. It's hurting. They seem to can't wean themselves off of it. We were kind of in that last bucket for a long time. Early on, we were struggling to get OT under control, especially in the summer. And what we found was that I could go to a worker and say, "All right, Eric, you've been making $27 an hour on average between your OT and your base. You finish these jobs in 40 hours instead of 44 hours. You're still going to make $27 an hour and you're home 4 hours sooner." But what we're trying to do is get the crew to realize that they can make their money they were making and do so in 40 hours and go home and not be working, do something else, and still have that income level that they were adjusted to with their OT rates. We combine that with a maniacal effort to avoid it.
Right.
There is certain discipline that comes to avoiding OT. It is just that we're going to finish today on these timeframes. What we hope that performance pay does is give the team an incentive to say, well, I can still make the money I was wanting to make, the real goal that I had in my head beyond my hourly rate, but I can get out of here at 5 o'clock instead.
There's this idea of incentives and how that affects the overtime. And it sounds like it's all tied around them executing on the schedule.
Very important.
So how do you ensure that your projects stay on schedule?
So that's a pretty broad question.
Yeah,
for
it is.
It's a little bit different, I think. In our space that we have really circulated, it is an effort to get the crew on the ground to care about the schedule so that we can be informed of things that might limit our success in getting there.
Right.
It is really good to know at 7:15 in the morning that materials aren't there instead of at 8:15 in the morning.
Yes.
Right? Or the sooner that you have the crew letting you know, here are things that we are doing that could throw us askew, or challenges we're seeing shape up, the sooner you can do something about it. A lot of our limitations are in when we can react to a problem that's going to throw us off schedule. If I have a 30-person company, 6 people in kind of 7 people in management of some level, they're only in so many places at a time. So I've got those 7 sets of eyeballs and ears to be aware of what might be throwing me off my schedule. I would rather get 30 people telling me where I might be off schedule, and because it begins to matter to them. So we always bring it back to, how do I get more engagement with the full organization so that I have a better chance of getting there? No matter what, you're going to have jobs go over schedule. It's just, that's real life. That's construction. If you don't want that, you're in the wrong line of work. It's going to happen. But let's make it happen less because we're a bit more aligned. Now, there's other things. There's control over your procurement process. There's ensuring that you've got a really strong estimating and permitting pieces in place. Every industry's got its own little nuances, trade.
So tell me about this peer accountability, because a lot of the work that I do with my clients, we're talking about the leaders holding the people who report to them accountable. And if you can tap into that secret sauce of peer accountability and actually get the guys and the gals in the field actually holding themselves accountable, that has a tremendous impact. How does Protiv specifically enable or promote peer accountability?
So when we create when you create a ProPay in our system, which is a jobs budget that has an opportunity for a bonus, the crew can see that labor budget. So they know they've got 100 hours to do this work. At the point they are rotating, through their task and they're working on their job, if someone isn't doing something right, there is awareness that that effort impacts the others financially. Right now, it doesn't. Right now, Bob never finishes that particular process correctly. And you're always having to kind of do rework. He carries 1 2x4 at a time from the truck, not his money, whatever that scenario is.
Yeah.
The minute that it becomes the crew's money, you gamify the labor budget to be their money.
Mm-hmm.
Now his peer pressure on him to perform is real. If you have 30 employees in the field, I guarantee you 2 or 3 of them are probably going to hate this because they're going to get pressure from their coworkers.
Yes.
You're going to have 7 people that think this is the greatest thing they've ever seen in their life, and they're going to excel. And you're going to get more work done with 27 than you ever got done with the 30.
Right.
Because they engage with each other in a different way. That's why I always talk about this as culture. The software will manage, your budget and your time, pull out of your time tracking and show the team what they're going to earn and run a report so you know what to pay everybody if they beat your budgets. Structurally, the software handles that. The communication and the culture side of this is the effort to pull it off successfully.
Obviously, incentivizing folks in the field is important. What, if any, incentives have you created that you found to be successful for folks in the office who perhaps don't have a direct impact on labor productivity, but an indirect impact?
There's really 2 answers there. We have, in our own company, we have always looked at GP-based incentives for field management, project managers, APMs, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought that they control more of the equation of a job success, procurement, efficiencies, et cetera, on that they should be tied into the gross profit of the project. That's always pretty easy to pull out too. My project managers, your APMs, et cetera, they're also paid at a scale where it's okay if they have maybe a quarterly bonus. If you try a quarterly bonus or let alone an annual bonus with a $27 an hour carpenter, they do not change their behavior on a Tuesday in April because they're going to get a holiday bonus.
Right.
So what we've done with mid-management is it's okay, I think, at a certain level to start to look at quarterly bonuses based off gross profit of, depending on the type of jobs you do, et cetera. The other thing that we have done, the only part that our software does in that, is we have tied we call it a lead pay. It's just a separate bonus line that can be paid to anyone in the organization if the job beats its labor budget, which is an interesting, start to apply that to how you look at estimating in particular. You need things like procurement and logistics. If the crew in the field actually beats the labor budget that you put out, then you have a chance to earn a little bit more. The thing about our estimators are frequently challenged to compress labor budgets to win jobs, right? So there's this, now I'm stretched, right? And so now what I really want to do is have a slight incentive there for them to have enough money in the labor budget that they can actually earn a little bit more if we can beat it. That's an interesting thing. Same thing goes with things like procurement. I have a client that is rewarding their mechanic in their shop. They have a big shop team that just maintains equipment because they want to make sure that equipment is working well so that the crew in the field isn't slowed down and can stay on schedule. They're a road building company. They're building roads. They need to make sure all that stuff is working, keep the productivity up in the field. So the crew in the shop, the mechanic, are earning bonuses based on how the labor budget goes in the field.
Right.
Fascinating.
Right. It's interesting. Where does this approach not work?
Time and materials projects. I haven't found a really way to do that. If you're using subcontractors for your work, it's not a tool. For subcontractors would be the ones that use this if you're a GC.
Right.
We're not a platform for GCs. I don't like it on jobs that are anchored around driving. I just think that it's a little sketchy. It's on the edge of sketchiness. My job is to drive around. I would like to actually encourage you to go slower. I think if you're driving, I'll quick crash my van into a tree.
How do you handle then if it's for subs, how do you handle that dynamic when coordination with other sub trades is not working well and that therefore is having an impact on your productivity and all that kind of stuff?
I'll always kick it back to, I really want to know. I want them all to care, and I actually want them all to be frustrated with it because I'm frustrated with it.
Right.
If I'm the electrician, I've got a crew out there and I can't get to what I'm doing because the framers are still, a week behind, and now I'm on the clock and they're slow and overlap and the painter's running behind me doing stuff. Too much, right? I'm frustrated as the head of that trade in the field. And I want my team to be frustrated by it. I want to find a solution to it.
Right.
So awareness so that I can do something about it is the solution.
How do you then
path for the solution?
So how do you then handle a crew who will come to you and say, okay, I know I didn't make my schedule. I know I didn't make my incentives, but it wasn't my fault. It wasn't on me.
I actually think that's one of the more interesting questions that I get asked is, well, what happens if it's not their fault? Should I still pay them a bonus? And my answer sometimes surprises people that I think the answer is no, because this is a bonus that you get earned if the company does better on the job. I want them to care that procurement didn't get the materials there. It wasn't their fault. It is not Bob's fault that the conduit didn't get delivered on time.
Right. But what's interesting then is so if I'm a leader of a crew, right? And let's say you're going to put me on job X with GCA, and I know GCA sucks. And then the other crew gets put on the job with GCB, and GCB rocks, and they always make their incentives. But this is out of my control. How do you handle that then?
I don't know that there's an easy answer to how to handle that. I think that there's juggling of crews between, good GCs, bad GCs, but I also suggest now you've got a lot more energy going into conversations with that GC every day at the job site about we need to be better.
Right.
You got to picture 7 angry plumbers, at the job site catching that project manager when he swings by.
Sounds like a movie title, 7 Angry Plumbers.
Right? Yeah. And the King Ranch Ford pulls up and the project manager gets out and he's got a different conversation now.
Yep.
Because remember, at the moment you have the same problem, but they don't care. That's the current world you're working in. what we're giving you is an opportunity, but I think performance pay gives you is an opportunity to get the team in the field to be aware of what those challenges are to running a successful contracting business. And the minute they begin to care, you are on a better path. You've taken a step forward. A lot of times people are like, well, I'll get questions like that. Well, what if this and what if this? Like, that's the current state.
Yeah.
Your current state is that it's not good.
Yeah.
So the only thing that we're encouraging people to do is try and get the whole company to care that it's not good.
Yes.
Because then you're more likely to find a path forward to something better.
I think that's the most interesting thing really is for an owner to put out an incentive program. And it's like handling your kids, right? The kids come back to you after you give them some sort of incentive and they didn't make it. And there's always reasons. And some may be in their control and some may be out of their control, but they're mad because they didn't get what they thought was coming to them.
That's real life.
Yep.
Well, here's the difference is that the worst case for me is that I go below zero as the owner.
Yeah.
Right. The worst case for them is they make their base wage, right? If you make $40 an hour, you're still going to make your $40 an hour, even if this job goes sideways. I don't have that luxury. I actually can go to zero and I can go below zero.
Right.
I've certainly experienced that before. So there is a better, story in there for the worker that the worst case, you're at least going to make what you were making before. Now the bonus is gone because it rained every day. We all got behind and slow or whatever.
Right.
But they're protected. And that's where, going back to the beginning, the idea of the carrot and the stick, we are emphasis on the carrot. We took away the stick side of it for that reason. Now, the software supports linking projects together. It's one of the things we found important for a lot of contractors in deploying a performance-based system is that if they kill it on one job, but then they blow it on another and they break even on a third and then they do well on a fourth, how much am I paying them? Am I paying them on the two good ones and lose money on the one? So we found that some companies wanted to roll jobs together and pay on the net of how it performed. So I do 4 jobs this month. At the end of the month, we look at how those 4 projects performed, and you can earn incentives based on the net performance of the 4 projects. Some companies do it that way. Some pay it based on the performance of each job individually. We have landscapers that do 20 jobs in one day. We have road building companies that do 1 job for 2 years. It doesn't really matter structurally within our platform. It is labor budget. I have a budget. I have an actual, how much time did we actually spend on it? And did we beat the objectives that we thought? And then was the job done correctly? And I can sign off on the quality.
So tell us a little bit more about Protiv and how people can get in touch with you.
Super easy. Protiv, Protiv.com. Michael@protiv.com is my direct email. You're welcome to email me if you want to learn more about us. You can catch on LinkedIn, etc. All of those good places. We do quite a few trade shows, different industries. I think I've got a couple landscaping ones coming up, a commercial painting conference, a big electrical conference, you name it. We're generally around. International Builder Show, World of Concrete, all those.
That's great.
So it's a good way to catch up with us, learn what we do. I will share if folks have ever thought about putting in place an incentive system at the worker level. Many of us have before.
Yep.
The spreadsheet, the challenges with all that, we can make all that go away. It is not only there are legal problems with a lot of that, we have solved this from a legal standpoint, we've solved it from a systematic standpoint. We plug it into the back end of what you do already.
Yep.
A big part of the software, Eric, is that we always needed software to do this. We always had this idea of performance pay. What we didn't have was software to manage it. So by plugging into your budgeting, Procore, Buildertrend, Java, or whatever you use, however you track time, QuickBooks Time, ClockShark, etc. There's always Busy is a great one. There's lots of them out there.
Yeah.
However you track time on one side, however you track your budget, labor, etc. on the other, bring those two things together. They flow into our software, and we manage a performance-based system. So been super successful, 10,000 plus projects through it now. So got a lot of good data on how it'll perform, and love to help folks out if they're interested in going down this road.
Great. And the one thing I would say to promote Michael is that he knows what he's talking about because he comes from construction. So he's not just some tech guy with an idea.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I don't know if I'm construction genius quality yet, but we're learning a little bit more every day.
There you go. All right, man. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Eric, thank you very much.
Hey, this is Eric. Just before you bounce away, thank you for listening to Construction Genius. And by the way, if you would please give this show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, I'd really appreciate it. Because if you do that, more people will listen to the show. So it's awesome. I'll catch you on the next episode.